Well, good morning. Ann Everett, it's a pleasure to have you in our Innovate Bio Leadership Biosciences uh, Institute. And I'm very pleased because you actually are a veteran of the pharmaceutical industry. And so it was very, very important in our Leadership Institute, which we're doing with Innovate Bio, which is our National Biotech Education Center grant from the Advanced Technological Education Division of the NSF, that we do this from an industry perspective. So I'm just delighted to have you interview with us today.
Thank you, Russ. Delighted to be here. So glad that you asked me, and I'm very excited about what you're doing with this leadership program.
And tell us a little bit about your biopharma background and your current community college role.
Sure. So the bulk of my background came from my work in the HR industry within the pharma industry up in Boston. So I was part of a Boston area biologics company for about 7 years in the neurology division. And my team was involved with an injectable that was treating MS. And initially, my work focused on a national sales team, supporting that team. We had about 140 people total. And then later on, I had the opportunity to work globally with the neurology team, which was very, very cool and very exciting to see just globally being able to travel and see how differently globally things look from a pharma, perspective. When you're just in the States, you have sort of that lens of the States, but being able to expand that globally was great. Here, my role as professional development coordinator, it's allowed me here at Forsyth Tech to really focus on the training and development aspect for employees. And that's something I've always been passionate about. And while I love what I've learned in the other areas, that's really, I feel like, my niche. So I'm really excited to be part of that here.
Excellent. And this is a program which is looking at emerging leaders in the bioscience area. And it's so important that we kind of get people who have actually administered programs in leadership from the industry to input on our program. So could you talk to us a little bit about what kinds of biopharma leadership programs you administered when you were in industry?
Absolutely. So during my tenure with that company, and as well as prior industries, most of the leadership training that we conducted, it was kind of off the shelf. It was contracted, external, mostly because we had a budget. And, we used companies, we used Harvard Business School, we used NYU, we also used Dale Carnegie. And so I was able to kind of view those programs and see them in action, and that was really neat. We also used recognizable tools, the DISC assessment that was very widely used in that company, as well as Myers-Briggs. Those kinds of things I think are very important for leaders understanding themselves. And based on the need, for when you're dealing with sales people, there's that need to really create that presence. And so we used some things that were maybe a little out of the ordinary, not kind of a box, a shelf kind of driven thing. And I used a couple of things, funny, weird things, like Gotham City Improv was a group that we used out of New York. They are theater based. So very, very much appreciated by our sales group. They just clung on to that thing, and they did very well with that. Another person we used was Dan Broden from Broden Communications. The guy is phenomenal. He was a news anchor, and he actually, a lot of his stuff that you'd see him on were news reporting kind of things. And he just was outstanding. He did a great job teaching presence, teaching presentation, coaching, and he doesn't pull any punches. He's sort of tough on you, but for all the right reasons. So we really enjoyed that. So those were the kind of things that we put into place in the past.
Those sound like fantastic programs. I know that you and I have discussed this, but I come from industry as well, and I come from the biopharma industry, and those programs actually take you a long way if you apply the principles. And so we can touch on that a little bit later. So, and currently you're leading a program in leadership at Forsyth Tech, and can you sort of tell us a little bit about the program and the program's key objective?
Absolutely. So being here for, a couple of years, one of the things that we noticed that we didn't really have a good leadership program in place. We would send some people, to outside programs. They were very expensive. And, being in a state school, we don't have the kind of budget to really send a lot of people. So off the shelf leadership programs, in my experience, have shown kind of they can leave out some critical pieces. And I noticed as I kind of went along, oh, it didn't touch on that, or it didn't touch on this. And so we never really found, I don't think I've ever really found the perfect off the shelf, mix of topics. So together, my team, Anna Marie Smith, our VP, she's amazing, as well as my colleague, Tracy Moss, we put together, we built it, a brand new leadership program. And what we did is we bundled it into 3 sections. And those 3 sections, because when you're thinking about all the things to do with leadership, they really can fall into these 3 buckets. And it's lead yourself, lead others, and lead the business, lead the work. And those 3 things, everything falls into that, because it's either you're trying to figure out how to be a leader yourself, self-awareness, self-understanding. Then it's that whole component of the me to we, everything that made you great at being a individual contributor has nothing to do with leading other people. And so that switching, that switched from me to we, that's the lead others piece. Huge, really, really great stuff in that one. And then leading the business. You can be a wonderful leader and have no idea what you're doing in the actual role. So you have to understand the business, understand, your competitors, all of those different things. So those 3 buckets is how we set it up. And, we designed it to provide managers with the tools they need to be the best version of themselves that they can possibly be. That was our goal. The program, it's 12 sessions. It's over 7 months with 30 hours of in-class time, and then about 20 plus hours of outside time. So it's hefty. It's a big commitment. But we also, we open it up. It's by, application, and it's a great process. So based on the feedback, probably the biggest takeaway that we've had is the participation, that connection from leader to leader, because it doesn't matter if you're, leading a landscape team or if you're a dean. Everybody has the same issues. All leaders are going to have the same types of issues that they're going to deal with. And that's what they recognized. And that was great to see. It really, and again, everything we're doing, we're getting that feedback back from the people so that we can then hone that program and maybe definitely keep certain things. Maybe some things people aren't that excited about. And we realize, yeah, maybe that didn't have the impact we thought, and we can tease that out. So it's a constantly growing, we're always looking at it, how we can adjust.
And that's a great description. Thanks very much for that. Thinking about this particular program that we're putting together, and actually this is a lecture for our participants. We call them fellows. They're bioscience fellows. And just to orientate you to whom they are actually community college instructors, and in some cases they'll be high school instructors who actually have opted to take the leadership program. One of the big things we've seen, Ann, is what we call the graying of our staff. Not that that's a bad thing, but it signals you to sort of prepare for the future. And I think in other discussions I've mentioned to you that we've actually seen a lot of talent leave the community college space, and they run these programs, and in the vast majority of them, they just retired. And as they retired, they left their programs. So when they left their programs, sometimes they were such strong leaders from the perspective of running their programs that in actual fact, the program itself kind of, died on the vine as they left. So, our kind of national thinking about this from a national perspective is to make sure that we've got the next generation in place to take on more and more responsibilities and to be able to lead programs. So thinking about this, you know, um, as they enter our institute in terms of preparing themselves, what do you think they should be thinking about?
Wow, it's a great question, and you made some terrific points. I mean, we see as people, just like you said, as they're moving forward and moving out of the system, how do we encourage those new people to come in with that open mind to really focus on what they can learn before those people completely leave. And I hope that's going to be one of them. But, several ideas come to mind. One would certainly be encouraging your participants to truly have an open mind, to be actively listening to the people that they're going to come in contact with. Now, obviously, in this leadership program, it's a little bit different. It's not where they're going to end up leading, but when they are with these other fellows and when they're in that, when they have that opportunity to glean from these other leaders and from the people who are teaching and lecturing and speaking, man, have that open mind, come in hungry to really connect with those people. Almost everything I've been involved in, there's at least one person in it that has been involved that I still have contact with, whether I'm LinkedIn with them. And sometimes I'll go, oh, I know who to ask. And I'll go to my LinkedIn and I find them and I ask them that question. And it may have nothing to do with my current job or my current role, but man, when you make those connections, it's huge. So be open to that, and really taking an honest assessment of yourself is huge. Knowing your strengths and kind of using those, but also being aware to be open to growth and feedback. Never be afraid of feedback, even if it's coming from the people that you're like, I don't want to hear feedback from them. Be open to it, because feedback is the reason that you'll be able to grow, and that's huge. The other thing too is, the tendency for science and the science industries to be hyper competitive is so there. I see competitive. I worked with a sales team. Nobody's more competitive than a sales team. And I think that can really result in this tendency to isolate, to say, oh, no, I know what's going on. I have that. I've got that down. And that can kill your career, because you will not grow. You'll think you know everything. So actively and intentionally work to combat that and be open. Also, based on the challenges, this is 2020, right? This is a year we never saw coming, none of us. And I think embracing that growth mindset, to be not going, oh, all this stuff is happening to me. Woe is me. Get out of that. That mindset will also kill your career and kill you as a professional. So just start to adopt that growth mindset. And when things come your way, you say, yep, that's happened. What can I learn from this? How can I grow up? And all the things that we've learned. We just learned how to become a remote work society. We didn't know we were going to do that. So there's so many opportunities there. But having that open mindset, I think, is huge.
And I think that is really good advice. And I have another question for you. This will be the final question of this particular virtual session. And we're hoping that, in next year, not this particular summer, we think that's a little early, but in 22 that we'll have these fellows in person. And, we'd really like you to come and address them and see them. And we are actually going to apply your DISC program with them. So thank you
Wonderful.
for giving us that tip. So, and reflecting on your experience in both your working environments, biopharma and community college, what is the most important leadership trait that persists in successful leadership talent training?
Okay. I would say, there's so many I could pick from here, because there's a lot of really important ones. But I would think that many of the people that are in your program that have a science background, they love science. They grew up, they were kids, they looked at the sky, whatever the thing is that brought them in, they were very likely got into it because of their curiosity around that. And one of the most important traits that any leader can have is to maintain their childlike curiosity. Now, you may say, well, what does that have to do with leadership? Well, I would argue that, first of all, some of the most innovative people that have ever lived on the planet made discoveries because they were curious. They were insatiably curious and couldn't help themselves. And people that enter the sciences do so, because of that curiosity. And I would encourage them to never, ever lose that. And there are several reasons why. Number one, when you think about children and adults, okay, adults ask generally 5 to 6 questions a day. Children ask 125 questions a day. And when you think about that, that blows my mind. Like, what happened? Did we suddenly know everything when we got older? No. But it's this idea that we stopped asking for some reason. And maybe that reason was, well, we found out a few things and then we stopped. Or we think we know all of the answers. And both of those are very dangerous. That's a dangerous place to be if you're not asking, if you're not wondering the next question, the further question, the wider question. So that is a huge one. So if you're curious, you're going to be constantly asking questions. From a leadership standpoint, being curious shows and reveals your humility to the people that you're leading, because it's telling them that you're essentially admitting that you don't know everything. That is a good place to be as a leader. People identify with that. They say, wow, they don't know everything, and they're willing to admit it. It's huge. It creates an authenticity to the people that you lead, and that may not be there otherwise. So the other thing is, if you're constantly asking questions of those around you, you're going to tend to, first of all, you're going to tend to surround yourself with people that aren't just like you, because you're going to be curious about them, whether it's their culture or their thinking, whatever that is. That automatically leads to a broader, more inclusive attitude and thought process. And it also makes you a better listener. So all of those things that come from simply being curious and driving that curiosity forward, I think are some of the most important things. Leadership is, there's a lot of things that anybody can learn about leadership, but there's some things that you have to learn by doing them, and this is one of them. Absolutely. So curiosity.
And you have answered all the questions I had for you, but I do want to make a comment and before we wrap this up, and I think you will echo the comment that I'll make. It's really interesting. I try to explain to people that work with me that every job is important in industry, and that you can never really be certain who may end up being the leader of the pack. And I recall when I was with a big multi national for many, many years, and I went to leadership, institutes and so forth, and I was being groomed, obviously. I saw some of my colleagues go and lead countries, and when I looked back at what we had going into, our positions at the company, you know, we didn't have a pile of educational degrees. In fact, some of the people that I know that have done extremely well in terms of being great leaders, but at the same time have taken on global responsibilities, simply came in through the sales force and had a bachelor's. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to make that evident, because I think one of the places where you put a lot of emphasis was on coming in and doing sales. And I think sales is something that everybody needs to do for a little while, because I think what it does, precisely what you said it does, you find out that in actual fact that you probably will ask a million questions, and you probably will be very curious if you're a good salesperson, because you have to understand and determine what the need is that the person on the other side may have. And I just wanted you to reflect on that. I know it was off the script, but I wanted you to reflect on that, because I think you've seen what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. That is a great point. Often, especially in the larger, corporations and pharma, you get that layering. You've got the high level senior VP, high level leadership, and then sort of just the sales team. And we have that in higher ed too. We have the staff versus the faculty, and all of these sort of divisions. We even call them divisions. Go figure, right? And the thing is the thing I think that sales brings, when you're a good salesperson, you tell the story of your product. You tell the story of your company. And that's why salespeople they do well. That's why they can really do a great job for the company. I always used to say, hey, you guys are the ones keeping the lights on in the building. I look at our students that way. Our students are the ones keeping the lights on in the building. And, that idea of, every leader needs to see each role as absolutely critical. And I don't care if it's the people cleaning the bathrooms, or if it's the highest level person, if it's Dr. Spriggs or whoever walking into the college. Each person has an invaluable role, because they can be just as effective in connecting a student to the college, or connecting a person, a customer to a product. It doesn't matter if they're telling the story and they're excited about what they do. That's sales right there. So regardless of the role, I think that absolutely makes sense. And I think each leader needs to feed that to the group that they're leading. Because when you start seeing, as a leader, if you start seeing people treat each other based on what they are, that's a problem. We need to treat people based on who they are, not what they are. The level doesn't matter. And I've always been a big fan of, some of the senior VPs that I've supported, who have cared genuinely about people. It didn't make any difference to them who those people were at level wise in the company. Those are the kinds of leaders that I saw do very well. And, you might think, oh, I'm going to get ahead. I'm going to just step on all these people. That's not getting ahead. That might be getting further up a little bit. But the problem is, all those people aren't your supporters.
Yeah.
And you need supporters if you're going to be a leader. And if you don't have that support, if you're not seen or perceived as genuine and authentic and really caring about the people that you lead, you're going to go nowhere. You might make money, you might be, but you've got no support. And who wants to live like that? Who wants to work like that? I don't. You need to treat people in a way that they know you care about them as people, not just employees. And that makes a huge difference. So great point.
And I want to thank you on behalf of my colleagues at InnovATEBIO for this great interview that you've given us today. I want to tell you that I was listening very carefully to every word that you were saying because, um, you know, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are in your career. If you're not, as you said, open-minded and listening, you're not going to change. And so I want to thank you for your contribution today. And we're really excited about the Leadership Institute. And I want to thank you for giving us so much input on what we're doing with our Leadership Institute. Thank you, Anne. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Russ. This has been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with the program, and I just welcome all of the fellows that are going to be part of it, and can't wait to meet them in person someday. You take
Exactly.
care.
That is the plan.